Hidden in the pages of history are 3 stories they don't want you to hear. Stories of regular people who snapped, fought back, and became legends of revenge. Forgotten by textbooks, but their rage, it's still echoing. Let us uncover the truth about what happens when the world crosses the line. In 1780 Normandy, the glow of a blacksmith's forge held a young girl's entire childhood. Marie Leclerc swung a hammer before she could write. Tougher than any boy, and her father swore she could outlast any storm. No one could have guessed how cruel fate's storm would be, burning everything she knew to ash. A fire devoured the forge, killing her father, and her mother tearfully sent her to Paris, begging for safety. She thought Paris would be her salvation, but it hid sharper blades than any blacksmith's tool. 2 years in a noble's estate transformed her from rough cloth to silk gowns, from illiterate to quoting Voltaire and wielding a rapier, all thanks to Madame Sophie, who treated her like family and taught her a lady defends what she loves. But the French Revolution of 1792 shredded every bit of warmth. Guards burst through the estate doors at 3 a.m., accusing the Comte of hoarding grain, and by dawn, his head hung from a square post. A week later, Sophie was marched to the guillotine, and with her last breath, she mouthed "Run" to Marie. But she could escape. Branded a noble sympathizer, iron chains cut into her skin as she was thrown into a rat-infested dungeon. When she crawled out of the sewers at dawn, she saw an 8-year-old boy begging beside his mother's blood-soaked body, and that string called patience snapped for good. She gathered 12 others who lost everything, named their group the Forgotten, and used the swordplay and gunmanship Sophie taught her to declare war on the revolutionaries. They raided warehouses for weapons, burned lists of enemies, and Marie's rapier pierced the chests of one persecutor after another, until she tracked down Jean Moreau, the man who signed the Comte, and drove her blade through his heart. 3 months later, the National Guard surrounded their hideout, and Marie, shot multiple times, still swung her sword until her last breath, whispering, "Remember us," as the world went dark. She was 23, honoring her love by burning out bright. In 1852, the dusty farms of Missouri gave birth to red-haired Tom Harper, a boy his mother called tough as a nail. He survived blizzards, dust bowls, and when his father died, he grabbed his 16-year-old brother Sam and headed to California, clinging to a promise: "We'll buy that ranch." Life in the West was brutal. Rattlesnakes intense, drenching rain, cutthroats around every corner. But the brothers stuck together, panning for gold at dawn, humming folk songs by the campfire and clinging to hope. In 1875, they struck gold in the Sierra Nevada, and Sam carved Lucky Star into a tree, thinking happiness had finally arrived. They never saw Jack Doyle coming, a tall man with a scar across his cheek, his eyes greedy as he offered to handle the legal stuff for them. Stupid, so stupid. They trusted him, only for Doyle to show up on a moonless night with gunmen. "The mine's mine now," he sneered, shooting Sam straight through the chest. Tom watched his brother die, then a shovel crashed into his left eye, and he was tossed into a canyon. Doyle's voice ringing in his ears, "Coyotes, LL finish him off." But hatred is the strongest painkiller. Paiute Indians found him, nursed him back to health, and taught him to shoot a bow with one eye to make a knife from flint. A year later, Tom forged 2 revolvers, carved Sam into the handles, and hit the road for revenge. He gunned down Jake in a Carson City saloon as the man bragged about feeding the Harper boy to coyotes, shot Bill dead in a brothel even as he begged. It was Doyle's idea, and forced Joe to reveal Doyle's hideout, Lucky Star, the town he built on stolen gold. Tom rode into Lucky Star at dusk, waited till midnight, and walked into Doyle's office. "Long time, Tom," Doyle said, reaching for his gun. But Tom shot first, hitting him in the shoulder. They fought amid crates of gold ore, Tom wounded but relentless, pinning Doyle to the floor with a gun to his throat. "You killed my brother," he said, and pulled the trigger. He collapsed beside the Lucky Star tree. Sam's pocket watch stopped at the time of his death, clutched in his hand, and smiled as the sun rose. In 1480 Florence, the scent of wool filled a weaver's shop as a tiny baby was born. Luca Berti was no taller than a 5-year-old by age 10, but he had a voice like an angel and played the lute so beautifully, crowds stopped to listen in the market. That's where a servant of Lorenzo de' Medici found him, saying, "My lord wants you." Lorenzo called him "my little jewel," dressed him in velvet doublets, taught him Latin and poetry, let him sit at his side during feasts, and told him, "You re not a toy, you re family." Luca played for kings, danced at carnivals, and finally felt loved. Until Lorenzo died in 1492. Lorenzo's son Piero took over, and to him, Luca was nothing but a spectacle. He forced him to dance in a jester's hat with bells, locked him in a cage with a parrot for a week, even set him on a shelf during dinners like a doll. Luca endured it for 11 years, until a feast in 1503, when Piero dragged him before the Pope's envoy and hauled in a starved feral wolf. "Fight it," he sneered, slapping Luca hard enough to make his ears ring. "Entertain us or feed it." In that moment, the gentle boy vanished. He pulled the small dagger Lorenzo had given him for protection from his sleeve and stabbed Piero. Sand, blood spraying across the nobles. Finally, he ran, but guards tackled him and threw him into a dark, damp dungeon. 3 days later, Maria, the servant who once snuck him bread, slipped him a key. "Run to the Arno River. Hide." He ran barefoot across stone floors, arrows whistling behind him. And as he reached the river, blue like the velvet jacket Lorenzo gave him, an arrow pierced his back. He fell, whispering, "I tried," as the dagger slipped from his hand. Maria buried him by the river, placing his lute on his grave. And to this day, Florentines say if you listen by the Arno at night, you can hear soft, sad music. A boy who only wanted to be cherished, playing his final song.